Right, I didn't like the first one I did, so I'm doing another one. You don't need to see my ugly mug, and I've got a bit more structure to it now. Let's talk about what it was like in the beginning. There was a lot of unknowns, and there was a lot of fear that the politicians would reject things if we didn't make it pretty tough. We had really good bureaucrats. Phila de Bunkel, the Alliance MP, she got the ball rolling. She's the real hero. Then there was Peter Pratt and Tony van der Lem. Absolutely brilliant, did everything that they could to help. I didn't agree with them most of the time, but I respected both of them. Then we had Sue Scott, who most people didn't like. I loved her. I didn't agree with her very often, but she would tell you things and then put it in writing and stick by what she'd said. In the early days, the individual was licensed, and that meant that once you produced your crop, you could take it to be tested to all sorts of places. As long as you had your license on you, you were home free. So you could cart the stuff around all over the place, do all sorts of things that you can't do now, because now we have the legislation which was based on fear. So there was a whole lot of stuff in there that wasn't required. But in order to get it past the post and agreed to by politicians, it was put in there. But it was recognised that with experience and time, the situation would change. Therefore, within 10 years, not at 10 years, within 10 years, it would be reviewed and revised on the basis of experience. That hasn't happened. What's happened is that the bureaucrats have gone from being the regulator to becoming the interpreter. And some of their interpretations are strange to say the very least. As I understand it, this year just about everyone is being required to do a THC test on the basis of one research and breeding crop went over the THC limit, and that's being used as an excuse to ensure that almost everybody has to do a THC test, which must be costing the industry well over $100,000, which would be far better put into economic development rather than telling us what we already bloody well know, which is it's low THC and there's no problem with it. It should be totally removed from the Misuse of Drugs Act and the Medicines Act, because it's neither. It's not a medicine nor a drug. And all this nonsense about CBD, it's just a flash Harry that New Zealand and the globe seems to have picked up. The real economic opportunities are actually in industrial hemp long term and making things that people utilise each and every day. This is extremely important from my perspective and needs to be recognised and addressed, which real farmers are. But the trouble is, there's a lot of people like myself who are ageing hippies, and they want to be involved because it's cannabis. Well, that's not a good enough reason to realise an economic opportunity. Yes, it's understandable, and I've always supported the smaller players and that sort of thing. You never know what's under a rock until you turn it over. And there's some really good ideas come out of some of the people who aren't what I would call standard farmers. By the way, I'm certainly not a standard farmer. I'm a wannabe that will never be. I'm more of a nosy bastard that wants to know why things work and, more importantly, why things don't work. What's not working at the moment for industry is the regulations and how they're being interpreted. First, we're told you can use hemp roots. Now, reportedly, you can't use hemp roots. It's ridiculous. No one's ever been charged for being in possession of cannabis roots, whether they be industrial hemp or the other stuff. So, some of those things are really frustrating from my perspective, and I'm not sure exactly how you get around it. Bureaucrats, let's talk about them for a minute. I'm often heard to say, if it was up to bureaucrats, we'd still be living in caves fighting over half-rotten pieces of meat. Whilst that might be true, I feel some sympathy for them because they are very much under instruction. So they're being told what to do, how to say, how to react, all that sort of thing. So really, it's not fair to blame them. It's better to be blaming the politicians, who I understand, I've just heard, one of them is saying, oh, no, we can't move it to MPI. There's too much going on in this space. And anyway, it's working very well under medicine's control. Well, no, it bloody well isn't. It's working very poorly. They've made lots of mistakes in issuing the things, but I do still feel empathy for them. They do not have our luxury of saying what they think and that sort of thing. They have to say what they think they're allowed to say, or the standard one, I can't possibly comment on that. All of this doesn't bode well for the economic opportunities associated with industrial hemp, which are huge, by the way, if the government would get on board and be supportive. So far, they've shown no inclination to do that, and that's rather surprising because we never got anywhere under the true blues. If you're a National Party supporter, I couldn't care less. They're all scallywags as far as I'm concerned, but the only ones we've ever done any good under are the smaller parties or Labour. I'm not trying to convince you to go one way or the other. People vote for many strange, different and bizarre reasons. At the end of the day, we should all recognise none of them are bloody well working for us. But put that all to one side. Knowing all these things, knowing that the bureaucrats are pretty much between a rock and a hard place, what can you possibly do? Well, what we need to do is get it removed from the Misuse of Drugs Act and the Medicines Act. Should never have been in either of those. Peter Dunn did this, and I believe that he did it for financial gain, but I can't prove that. But that doesn't matter either. What needs to happen is that energy has to be put into doing those two things, getting removed from the Misuse of Drugs Act because it isn't, and the regulations need to be reviewed and revised based on experience and what's actually needed, not the regulations as they stand. We're meant to be able to make anything in whole or in part from industrial hemp. You try it. You'll be damn lucky to get away with being able to make anything out of the damn stuff that has any meaningful economic opportunity. And that's like saying, well, yeah, you can grow wheat, but cut the heads off and burn them, and you can do what you like with the stalks. Brilliant. This is what has made humanity great, isn't it? And you've got to laugh. There is no other way to deal with this sort of thing. So what's needed is unity. And all of these magnificent egos and new experts that are wandering around, they need to be all working with a common goal, as does industry, which seems to be completely absent at this point in time in terms of any of their representative bodies. I don't know what they're doing. I made a statement a while back. I had great faith in the CEO's Alliance, who seemed to be on a mission to nowhere. So I don't know what's going on there, and I don't really care. I am always outcome focused. I want to achieve results. I'm not interested in sitting around making a noise or attending fancy meetings or hugely expensive dinners and all this sort of shit. I'm far more interested in getting a result. So I'm thinking to myself, we either need a co-op or a collective in Southland, Otago, possibly the West Coast, those sorts of things. I'm hoping that that's the route that we'll decide to travel along and start getting some action happening here and using the election year to actually get heard and some action to take place. I think it's no good relying on other people, and there's some damn good people out there currently working for the industry and getting nowhere, and others who aren't yet but could well be, and I've met quite a few of them, and these people will make it happen. The Sarah and Aarons, the Andrew Bells, there's people down in Invercargill that are already taking steps in that sort of thing. Those sort of people need to be encouraged, supported and assisted. So let's rock and roll in 2020, people, and see what we can do. Thank you, Mac.